Good afternoon. I'm Alan Unell, and this series of videos is Healthcare Advocacy, where we address problems in the healthcare system and then take actions to make a better system for all of us. We have a lot of topics today, including some exciting news about cancer research. But down below in the YouTube description box, before we start, let me point out that there is a link to the Healthcare Advocacy newsletter that is the text for today's video. It has lots of links to the background material, medical publications, and any actions we take are there, together with a wealth of resources you might find useful. Let's get started. Turning off cancer. Scientists have discovered a molecular switch that can actually reverse cancer, turning cancer cells back into healthy counterparts. The revelation came from researchers at KAIST, the Korean Advanced Institute for Science and Technology in South Korea. They have discovered a molecular switch that actually can revert the fate of cancer cells back to normal cells, according to their author, Kwon-Hyun Cho. He gave in a statement recently. I want to point out that in the Healthcare Advocacy newsletter is actually a link to their published report. It's done with, they published it at Wiley Online. Anyway, they did this, the author explained, by capturing the moment of critical transition right before normal cells change irreversibly into a cancerous state. Now, a critical transition, the researchers explained, is when a radical change in state occurs at a specific point in time. A recognizable case, for example, is when water changes into steam at 212 degrees Fahrenheit when boiling. Another critical transition also occurs at a specific point in time in the process by which normal cells are transformed to cancer cells as the result of an accumulation of both genetic and epigenetic changes. In their study, Cho and his colleagues found that on the cusp of the transformation during the development of tumors, which is called tumorigenesis, normal cells enter an unstable state in which normal and cancer cells coexist. Probing this critical transition using a systems biology approach, the team created a system to infer a model of the genetic network that controls cancer development, and then uses this to find a molecular switch that can actually reverse the process. You'll also find a link to this news story in Newsweek in the newsletter. Let's talk about Trump because things are not going well for us with him. Trump to U.S. COVID, and Trump has decided that in the United States, COVID-19, and bird flu don't exist. And since they don't exist, we don't have to worry about it. The Trump administration is now pushing the Department of Health and Human Services to go after anything related to COVID and contracts that would be deemed wasteful by the average American citizen if made public. This is according to an email that was sent to the Food and Drug Administration staff last week, and Bloomberg News got a copy of it. Moreover, the CDC's weekly morbidity and mortality report, good news, it's returned to publication. Bad news, bird flu and COVID are not reported. I went and checked. I could not believe it. And I left them, they said, how do you like our website? I left them a scathing opinion because it stinks. Anyway, I guess if you repeat the lie long enough and loud enough that COVID-19 and bird flu don't matter, no one will have to think about it and no one will die. Anyway, there's a link to the week's full report, and I have it in the newsletter, and it is shocking. You can go there and look. P.S. If you think bird flu isn't a problem, my understanding is that 50 million birds have died already. I read of one farmer who had chickens. He said in a 2-week period he lost 6 million chickens. There's a reason that eggs are selling for more than $6 a dozen. Anyway, more Trump firings. Sources say the White House is preparing an executive order to fire thousands of staffers at the FDA and the CDC and other federal health agencies. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. In the meantime, health agencies have been told to rank employees in their probationary period, with up to 40% ordered to be marked as non-mission critical. I used to work in industry, and when you hear words like that, time to worry. Anyway, a U.S. judge on Thursday, February 6, 2025, temporarily blocked the Trump administration's proposed buyout for federal workers until at least Monday, which is the, I can't remember, 10th? Mm-hmm. Monday's the 10th, giving an initial win to labor unions that sued to stop it. Even as the program was stayed, more than 60,000 federal employees have already accepted the buyout offer, a White House source told Reuters. The ruling by U.S. District Judge George O'Toole in Boston pushes back the midnight deadline set by the Trump administration, which is pressuring federal workers to leave their jobs in an unprecedented drive to overhaul the federal government. Stop and think about it for a minute. What they're doing is cutting the payroll in order to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. Of course, they're not going to do any work, but they'll have more cash. As a part of that effort, the Trump White House is in the midst of a dramatic downsizing of the U.S. Agency for International Development, which distributes humanitarian aid around the world. The administration plans to keep fewer than 300 of the agency's worldwide total of 10,000 employees, four sources told Reuters last week. This is not just cruel, it's evil. Now, the dictator, I think it's Venezuela, has offered to house any U.S. prisoners for far less expense than the U.S. pays. That country is known for torturing and abusing prisoners, and he said that his discussions with the U.S. included not just undocumented aliens, but U.S. citizens as well. He's happy to have them all. I think it'll be a nasty day when the U.S. outsources U.S. citizens to be tortured in foreign jails. We got a lot to work on here. Meanwhile, Trump's buyout proposal has upended Washington, D.C., sparking street protests and accusations by labor unions and opposition Democrats that the Republican president is violating multiple laws. You can go to the Reuters link in the newsletter and catch which laws they're violating. An example of support for federal workers. Here in Vancouver, Washington, we're going to be outside the federal building tomorrow, Monday at 1 p.m., when the federal workers take lunch with signs of appreciation, and we have a whole lot of candy for them because we like them. Anyway, here's an action. You can call your member of Congress and your senators and tell them to do everything in their power to halt the Congress until Trump and his minions stop violating the law. You can also ask your Democratic representatives how you can help them. I have a link in the YouTube description box, so it'll have their phone number. No resist bot on this. I think the most important thing is call them. If you're shy about calling them, call them in the evening on the answering machine, leave a message, and you might want to leave your phone number and email and say, I'm here to help you. What do you need? Anyway, that's what I've got for you today. Have a good weekend. We're going to work hard to resist the Trump administration, and we have some interesting stories next week, especially on prior authorizations. Okay, that's what I've got for you. Have a good weekend. Talk to you soon.